Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Friday's edition of the Biennial Coffee Chat. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with four speakers from across this hemisphere about the topic of innovation and entrepreneurship, and the sort of buzzword of the year, which is pivot, and how do these entrepreneurs and innovators pivot to meet the needs of the moment that we're all experiencing here in 2020. I would like to encourage you all to engage with this conversation. You're welcome to place comments in the chat box underneath the video, and we'll make sure to try and get to those at the end of the conversation. We look forward to your thoughts and hope that you all engage with this conversation as we have four great speakers with us today. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Christina, who will introduce our speakers, and we'll get this conversation started.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you for organizing this coffee chat on innovation and giving me the honor of moderating today. Hi, guys in the panel, and hello, everybody connected to the stream. My name is Cristina Narvaez, and I am a consultant at the Organization of American States, where I work to promote innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainable inclusive economic development in the Americas. I collaborate with numerous teams in a program called the Americas Competitiveness Exchange, ACE for short. The ACE brings together top decision makers from the private, public, and academia sectors from around the Americas and other regions to engage with innovation hubs, research centers, leading firms, urban and rural economic development agencies, and several other stakeholders that are at the forefront of innovation in a specific region. During the program, the participants and hosts exchange knowledge and activities and knowledge and experience and build networks to increase and foster trade and collaboration opportunities. I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. I am a lawyer, and I worked for over 5 years in a big law firm in Colombia. And after earning my master's degree here in the US, I realized that I wanted to change gear and pursue a career where I could have a more positive and substantial impact in society. So then I went and worked for several nonprofits in corporate social responsibility, where I saw the importance of innovation-driven economic development and the need for the government, the academia, and the private sector to work together. So when I learned about the ACE program, I knew I wanted to get involved, and fast forward over 2 years now, I am happy to work in the team that runs the program at the OAS. So that is my journey. And I would like to give the floor to our wonderful panelists for them to share their journey with us and tell us about who they are and what they do. Jennifer, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Christina. So thanks for having us here today to talk to the group. So my name is Jennifer Wagner. I'm president of a company called CarbonCure Technologies. We are a clean technology company focused on decarbonizing the concrete industry. So back in 2012, we started our mission to help reverse climate change. And why that's important is that the concrete industry represents about 8% of global emissions, and there's lots of concrete out there. So we're actually building at a rapid pace now, building about in New York City every month, 40 years, and most of that will be built with concrete. So I can get a little bit more later into sort of what the technology does, but essentially we're focused on addressing climate change through decarbonizing concrete.
Thank you for sharing. What about Diego? Would you take the floor?
Cristina. As Cristina mentioned, I'm Diego Chavez. I'm from Guadalajara, Mexico, and I'm the founder of a company called LEAF, Limpieza y Frescura. We We started because we created a product called Leaf, as well as the name of the company. What it does, it's a small patented oral brush that helps eliminate bad breath in a really simple and effective way. So we created a substitute for chewing gum when you want to get rid of bad breath on the go. We started a couple of years back. We started selling in Mexico in 2017, and at the moment we are selling in over 5,000 points of sales nationwide, with most of the most well-known retailers down in Mexico. And we are currently seeking to expand to the US and European market, as well as Latin America.
That is awesome. David, would you close the introductions?
For sure. My name is David. I'm the head of business for KiwiBot. I was also born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. My background, I've worked in philanthropy, I've worked in impact with the United Nations, and definitely the pursuit of creating sustainable change in the world led me to join KiwiBot, a Colombian robot food delivery company that will open operations in Denver on Monday. We're established at UC Berkeley, and we are expanding quickly over California, namely in San Jose and LA. I think it's great that we can build sustainable sidewalk autonomous robot delivery technology that will be geared to closing the gap for accessibility for all those communities that have seen a negative impact after COVID and toxic air in the air. So definitely it's a great opportunity to be part of this panel, and looking forward to your questions.
Well, thank you to all of you. You have incredible stories and backgrounds. And what struck me out of your stories is that each of you are in a way entrepreneurs and have been involved in the creation of the companies that you now work for, and have several projects in your plate. I wanted to ask whether you could describe how the idea of your company was predicated or was conceived by a problem that you identified, and how it has evolved to help it solved. I know that Jennifer was climate change, and David was like access to food in several communities. So I would just like to expand and see what sparked that creativity to advance your projects and companies. Sorry, Jennifer, would you start?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Christina. So the company was established really with one mission in mind, which is to reduce 500 megatons of carbon emissions each year. And that's equivalent to about taking 100 million cars off the road every year. So pretty ambitious goals. And sort of the reason why that's important, of course, is, climate change is a major problem. It's not going away. Just look at the wildfires in the western part of the US right now. So pretty scary stuff. So, this is something that we've recognized for the last decade. Something really needs to be done here quickly. And so we set about developing this technology that recycles CO2. We take CO2 from the air, from smokestacks, and actually recycle it and put it into concrete, where it's consumed and actually converted into a mineral. So the technology actually sequesters the carbon within the concrete, and it actually makes the concrete stronger. And that's really important because the way we design the technology and the business model is that we don't just offer an environmental benefit to the concrete industry, but it also offers economic benefits. And I think that's something that's really critical to seeing these technologies actually scale. Is it's not just a green product that makes you feel good to buy. It actually makes economic sense. And I think by having those two pillars of economic benefits and environmental benefits, it's really a win-win scenario for everybody involved.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I do agree that it is important to highlight not only the positive impacts in the environment, but also how economic smart it is to invest in technologies and like clean technologies that would help reduce climate change. David, how about you? Would you care to share more about your entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. I think that first things first, we're lucky. We started off at our university in Bogota. There were social dynamics that brought all type of students to the university, and it was great because it changed totally the experience of studying there. And many students were lagging the resources to make it through life on campus. Our solution was to build a delivery company so that students could do deliveries for students, and you can have income even if you have 20 minutes. The objective is that you can make money in 20 minutes if you need to. So it was great. We built a company. It got pretty famous, and of course, we decided we wanted to expand it to the US. We came to the US after exiting the company in Colombia, and only to find out that students' time in the US is much different than it is in Colombia. After realizing that this is a reality, we went on and built the first robot. So there was not a lot of thought on that. We went to Target, we got a little basket, an RC car, we stripped it away, and we used a cell phone, and that was actually our first robot on the street. We believe that delivery is something that is super common in Colombia or in Latin America or in Asia, and we want that to be the reality in the US. We were actually pretty surprised it's not that way already. So creating the mode for accessible delivery in the US, of course, meant a service that was geared for the wealthy, for students, for certain downtown areas. And that's kind of the ethos we've been working for over the last 3 years. COVID came, the reality of our world totally changed. And definitely the world started calling for different solutions. At KiwiBot, we played things different, and I think not being from Silicon Valley, but playing the Silicon Valley game has an advantage because instead of asking for forgiveness, we ask for permission. By having close communication with local governments, policing ourselves in terms of how to deploy hardware on the public right-of-way, we were able to create huge synergies that have led us to develop modes where we're transitioning mobility from mobility to accessibility. And instead of creating a service that will suffice the needs of certain communities in downtowns or college campuses, now we are creating a Zebra mode for sustainability, where we can create accessibility for all. So essentially, I think it's great that the US opened the doors for us, that we've been able to work so closely with great universities like the University of Denver, Stanford, or UC Berkeley. And we're super excited to keep on going, to have things organized, and definitely to create a huge footprint for the future.
That's great. That's great. And I want to rescue a couple of things that you said, some about the lucky aspect or the luck aspect when you start a business. And well, sometimes that's the way it is. And again, how different cultures could affect the implementation of a project or the deployment of certain technologies, and that you also have to account for that when you're creating a startup or launching a project. So that's very interesting to learn. Diego, please enlighten us.
Of course. Yeah, actually my story is a little bit different. Usually when I'm talking about my project, my company, ask me if I'm a dentist or an odontologist or something like that. And the truth is I actually have no experience whatsoever in oral hygiene. I just happened to encounter the need while I was working for another project. A couple of years back, I worked at a company where I was on the road all the time. So I checked in the office early in the morning, and I grabbed the car and start visiting clients on points of sale. And there was this client that I always visited after lunch, and he was a really nice guy and everything, but it was really hard to sell to him. And once I came back to my boss at that time, and he like, why is it so hard to sell to him? I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe because it's right after lunch, and I usually come after having something to eat, and it's not the best time to go. And he laughed, and he was like, yeah, ha ha ha. But after a couple of times, he's like, no, really, you have to make this happen. And I'm like, and I realized that it's not actually that I'm not selling because I have bad breath, but it's the confidence I have when selling that gets impact, right? And there's all of these solutions out there. Like you could just try chewing gum or Listerine tabs or something like that, or you could always brush your teeth before visiting the client, but it's not really convenient, right? So after realizing that, I was like, oh yeah, if there's nothing like this out in the market and I have the need, how many people out there have the need, right? So instead of trying to buy something, I just went ahead and created, and it's worked. So that's how it all got started. Not having the experience, just having the need.
I think that's a very important point. Sometimes to be an entrepreneur, you just have to have an idea and pursue it, not just think of something and go after it. Thank you for sharing that experience. So learning more about the background that you have and the projects that you are leading, I wanted to learn more about what does innovation means to each of you, and how does that translate to the current work that you are developing. So David, would you like to start this time?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
It's okay. I was mentioning that after you sharing your background and the stories of your entrepreneurships, we would like to learn more about what does innovation means to you and how does that meaning translate to your current work.
Yeah, I think that in the end, what we want to do, any company in the world should be geared towards creating the conditions that will make you want to have a kid in this world. This is a very high level idea that we have at KiwiBot, that every company in the world is helping you make the decision to reproduce. So in this way, innovation is a way by which you can identify something that is out there in the world, and you can tweak that reality and make something that will create joy when there used to be a barrier, like a frontier. So in terms of what we do, we believe that a society that thinks of each one of their citizens, a city or a community or a country where your needs are always met, will allow you to reach your full potential with a higher probability. And I think that as a service provider, because in the end, we will provide basic needs and food, we're essentially fueling the brains and creativity of everyone in our communities. And we believe that this is a direct channel to create the maximum amount of entropy on the system. And that can ultimately create more and more and more, say, even network effects of actions that will lead to a stronger society. So I think that's kind of what we do. We think of innovation as a process that seeks progress, but our version of innovation is one that is very tied to the human factor. So we don't want to run through innovation or change that will not positively or in a way that we can measure like positively affect people. That's all that innovation means to us.
Wow, that's a very sensible way to understand innovation, and I do agree that we should be accountable for what we are leaving to the next generations, whether you want to have kids or not. But I do agree. Jennifer, how about you?
Sure, yeah. So innovation is actually one of our core values. We have 6 core values at our team, and innovation's right at the top. It's also just part of our DNA. I think when we started the business a decade ago, the chemistry behind the technology has actually been really well understood for almost 100 years. But the way that we apply it to deliver our technology is what's unique and innovative. And so, whether it's, digging into the weeds on a problem that we're having on a daily basis, or sort of taking a step back and setting the vision for the company, really innovation kind of percolates through every aspect of the business. And I think looking sort of at a holistic level, sort of the concrete industry and many industries have been trying to decarbonize over the last few decades, with energy efficiency measures, alternative fuels, and so on. And all of those things are necessary for us to meet our climate targets, but they really are just reducing the amount of emissions that go into the atmosphere. They aren't really addressing the emissions that are already in the atmosphere. And I think that's particularly one of the aspects in which CarbonCure is so innovative, is that not only are we making concrete more efficient, but we're also taking carbon emissions that have already been emitted, decades ago, and pulling those out of the air and putting them into concretes. And this is something called carbon removal. And a lot of big tech companies are recognizing that carbon removal is really critical for us to meet our climate targets. Companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Shopify and others have really recognized that this is key to our success. So I think that aspect of carbon removal is really innovative. And honestly, those words didn't even exist just a few months ago. So this is really an evolving space, and we're I think CarbonCure represents about 90% of the removal projects in the world right now. So we're definitely leading the pack.
Wow, that's great. And I wanted to highlight a little bit of what you said at the beginning, where you identified how to do certain thing that is like concrete product that was already known for 100 years, but then you reinvent in a way the wheel and proposed a new way to do it that is green conscious. So sometimes you do have to reinvent the wheel, and sometimes the pivot is not only on launching new, completely disruptive products, but also learning how to adjust the ones that we already have to work better. So thank you, Jennifer. So Diego, could you please close this section?
Yeah, for sure. I read somewhere that the best way to define innovation is that you need to be hacking the system, right? This means that you need to analyze the way things are done and find a better way to reaching the objective. So there's a story about when I think it was the Wright brothers or somebody like that. They were innovating in how to make a better bicycle. And so the point was getting, oh yeah, I need to get from point A to point B. So how can I make a better bicycle, right? And even though they were well known for making bicycles, they created a plane, right? So instead of making a better bicycle, they just created a better way from getting from point A to point B. And I think that's what innovation is all about. It's not making things better. It's not about making the wheel better. It's just finding a different way to reach the objective. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody here, we can sit and talk about innovation for hours, but then go and do the job. It's completely different. So I wanted to follow up with you guys on certain things that you've mentioned. So Diego, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you initially experienced with your company due to COVID, and how you were able to adapt and pivot?
I think it's no secret COVID's been a roller coaster for everybody everywhere, right? And we weren't the exception. At the start of COVID, there's two things that really affected us. First, we were about to close a deal with a distributor in Spain, and they already had their flight booked to come to Mexico to sign the contract and everything. And Spain was hit by COVID before Mexico. So they were like, oh, things are getting rough here. We might not be able to make it. And we're like, why? Nothing's happening, right? And we should have seen that as get ready for something, right? So we missed out on that opportunity to sign the contract. We're still talking to them, but it's gonna be a long time to see till things get back to normal, right? And all of a sudden, things starting to get really, really weird in Mexico, and we got like curfew, nobody could go out and stuff like that. But we thought we were gonna be fine. We thought like, oh, maybe this is 4 or 5 weeks, and we have money in the bank. We will be okay, right? And then our sales dropped almost to zero because our product is we buy it an impulse. This means we sell it in convenience stores, in corner stores, and it needs to be right next to the cash register. That's key for our product to sell. And all of a sudden, instead of having our product there, they had hand sanitizer and all these COVID related products. So there was no space for us in the shop, and that was terrible. What happened is we are still a really small company, we can be really agile, so we can react and act really fast. As in all the world, there was a necessity for hand sanitizer, right? And we were really close. The decision makers, as decision makers, we were really close to the buyers from a really important chain store in Mexico. And they came to us and they're like, we need hand sanitizer, and there's no time for any of the big companies to supply it because the time they take to complete the process, it's too long. So can you do something for us? And being really small, we just reacted and we searched for a really good option, and we were able to supply that product and by the demand that the market needed. And that gave us money to stay afloat during COVID.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And I do agree that sometimes the more complex the company it is, the more flexible they get, as they are fairly used to deal with different exotic demands from their clients. And they can adapt really fairly quickly. So thanks for sharing. Jennifer, turning back to you, I would like to sort of dig deep in what you mentioned at the beginning, how you started as a chemist and then you decided to focus into this project that uses clean tech to reduce carbon footprint and using concrete, and how that your background pivoting career has reflected the current pivot under COVID, if you had any experience, or whether you really didn't have to pivot, because I think concrete and climate change is sort of stable, a real issue before, after, and will be before and after, and of course during the pandemic.
Of course, yeah. And I sort of reflected on this when everything kind of shut down at the beginning, thinking, how can I help, like in my community and in the industry at large. And really what it came down to is, we weren't experts in making ventilators. We don't have any equipment or expertise to make hand sanitizer. So I think the way that we can help is to protect against the next sort of looming crisis, which is climate change. And so for us, when COVID first hit, we had sort of a three-pronged approach. And we were quite proactive when things were happening over in Asia and then into Europe. They hadn't quite hit North America yet. We were sort of thinking, I can kind of see where this is headed. So let's take some proactive measures here. And the first thing that we ensured was the health and safety of our people. At that time, we were traveling quite a bit. We have about 300 plants scattered around the world. Most of them are in North America, but we do have partners and plants in other parts of the world, like Asia and Europe. And so people were traveling. And so as soon as we sort of got wind of what was going on, we promptly got them to return home. And even though it wasn't actually required at the time, we mandated a 14-day isolation period. And so who knows if those folks would have spread it to other people, but I think it gave us some comfort in doing the right thing. So that was sort of the first measure, was health and safety of our people. Secondly, we turned our attention to sort of near-term liquidity measures. So for us, we have been the recipient of several federal funding programs. And so they were able to offer some flexible terms around advance payments for some of the claims. So we were able to ensure that we had the cash to weather the storm. And so that was sort of the second piece that we put into place. And then once those two things were taken care of, we turned our attention to putting together some sort of creative measures to ensure business continuity. So again, for us, we've always sent engineers on planes to install our technology at these plants. And that was, of course, not an option. So we sent our engineers away for, I think it was a long weekend, and they came back on Monday and said, we've got to figure it out. And so now, ever since then, we've been installing all of our equipment remotely. Our engineers are on their phone, they're on the Zoom calls. We were able to put together some, manuals and training materials for the customers. And now they actually do the install themselves while we support them remotely. So for that, that's kind of like a no-brainer now. It makes so much more sense. We can scale so much more quickly. And instead of our engineers flying around all over North America, which takes a couple of days and is quite expensive, we can do that, 4 or 5 installs in a week over the phone. So that's been a real game changer for us. And I think if we'd presented that opportunity to the customers a year ago, they probably would have said, no, that's not how we do it. We want you to come and shake our hand, and we want to look you in the eye while you're plugging it in. And now with COVID, this is just the way things are done now. So for us, that's kind of been the silver lining.
Well, that's great, and I do believe that companies, whether they're small or big, are an active member of society, and the way they care about their collaborators or employees is also fundamental to the well-being and livelihood of everybody. And the way the pivot can sometimes happen has been accelerating digitization and telecommuting for a lot of companies. So that's also in a way positive. And it's very interesting what you've shared. Thank you, Jennifer. So turning back to you, David. Could you please share about the creative process that you went through, where you needed to identify a need that was present in the US market and was no longer present, that it was completely different from Colombia, and under COVID, how have you been able to scale up that solution to connect communities that are maybe far away and they couldn't travel to have their supplies, or how has the delivery need grown through the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think that we definitely got the tailwind here because McKinsey showed an investigation, and they reported how over the last 3 months, e-commerce grew the equivalent of 10 years. So definitely we wake up to a completely different reality. What we did was a moonshot for many investors, for many people. So definitely this proves a point that creating moonshots can actually turn to be something beneficial. Definitely, I think that what the inflection point and the reason why we've thrived when many of our competitors have not is because we do not have an agenda. We know we have principles, but we will follow the environment so that we create a product that will suffice the needs of our communities. So I think that the biggest change and the biggest breakthrough during COVID has been accelerating on our public policy angle, listening a lot. We started listening more than we talk, and we talk a lot. So it was great to start creating and gapping between what the cities actually would like that we do, and we will find a way as a business to keep existing as we do this. This was pretty abstract, but in the end, it comes to the fact that COVID is the crisis that has accelerated change. And right now, I'm very proud to say that we are starting to design a pilot where accessibility or robot delivery for certain communities, say AARP or ADA, can even turn into a public service. So I think that the fact that we can have COVID as the opportunity to accelerate social changes as deep as having the next hot water at home or the next electric grid is definitely something that's heavy on infrastructure, that is heavy on the mindset, that in the end, even if this is a Colombian company or not, it doesn't matter. In the end, it's how the US creates the environment so that the best social response can always be there. It's a proof for resilience. It's a proof for for improvement of the human condition. So I think that in the end, for us has been an incredible amount of work. I've handwritten 4 complete notebooks out of calls with each of the persons that I've been talking to. I think that the strategy that actually made a difference. We listed every single conversation we had in our Google Calendar since the company started. We filtered the top 30% more interesting leads, and we went all in. So I think it has to do with persistence more than intelligence, and it has a lot to do with listening to your surroundings. I think that we're not smart at all. We're just persistent.
Well, that's a way to put it, and I do agree that when you have a startup, you really need to be tuning to the market and listen to the feedback that your customers or your clients give you to sort of lead the way and show what the next steps are. So thank you all for sharing these first rounds of answers. At this point, I really want to encourage our audience to make questions in the comments of our live streaming in Facebook, and we will, of course, translate these questions to our panelists in case you would like to learn more about what they do. So turning back to you, Diego, I would like to know, and if you're okay, you could tell us about your current participation in the Denver Economic Development and Opportunity Program, or how was to be part of the Global Landing Pad. And can you talk about how that impacted your plans and your company, how you ended there, and how was that experience under the pandemic? Because I understand you were in the Landing Pad 2020, right?
Yes, that's correct. We just had our graduation ceremony yesterday. It was good. Just giving a little bit more information about it. DEDO is the Department of Economic Development of Denver, and they organize a program which is called the Global Landing Pad. What they do is they try to get outside foreign companies to understand how business is done in Denver and in the US. Their intention is to make it easy for companies to establish in Denver, and you go through a process where they set you up with mentors in a lot of different aspects, like going from legal to opening up a bank account, human resources, immigration, visas, and it's a really, really well-run program. I think they've done it for a couple of years now, but they were like into the discussion about doing it this year or not doing it because of the pandemic, and they decided to do it virtually. And I have to say they did a great job. It's really hard to just organize a panel like this, that it's one time. I think there's like 13 or 14 companies from all over the world. There's a company from India, there's a couple companies from Australia, from England, just to participate in a program so important. It's really hard, and they've done a really good job. So it's been an awesome experience. I encourage everybody to check it out and try to apply for next year's.
Thank you, Diego. I want to highlight one thing that I think it's very important is to learn how to do business in a specific region, because I think that's very valuable. Not every business works in the same way everywhere, and you do have to get to know the culture, the way you're doing things, and how to move around. So thank you for sharing, and congrats again for your graduation. Following with David, so you mentioned that you are about to launch a new project in Denver, continuing to work with community. Could you please expand a little bit more on that, and how were you able to enter Denver market, and how has the COVID pivot impacted these plans?
I'm actually very excited about this piece. So we came here to the US in a parachute. No friends, no connections. No one had studied in the US. Actually, I'm very proud that I can speak English now, so that's also another advantage. So I have to admit, we've been hackers. We hacked UC Berkeley, we hacked Stanford, we hacked the University of Denver. We always find a way in. The way I got into the University of Denver, I found a professor on a joint program between engineering and business. And what we did was, I told him, I was very clear, I want to start Kiwi operations in Denver. I love Denver because it wasn't my strategy. The thesis is that if you grow a market that is growing by itself, if you hold stable operations, it will still grow. So it's an easy pick. With that said, he liked the idea, and what we did was hiring 4 students, at the U. Students from multiple careers. So we have engineers, we have people from business, we had everything. Starting last year, around this time last year, until March, we know why. We held this program where the students were actually the ones involved on the launch for KiwiBot at Denver University. My thesis here is that if you're a student and you're trying something new, it's better for you, or you will be more likely to accept something new if it comes from someone from your community. I think that these companies that just come and push services that can be too aggressive, and I think it creates a better footprint if you involve the community, and then after the service is all set up, it's the same community that will make it thrive. So I think that hyper-local approach will help us go over many of the errors and mistakes that are traditionally made when a company wants to penetrate a new market. The thing that really makes me proud of this is literally you will see news about this, hopefully, starting next week. And because we're planning to do like a big media campaign around this, and the company we're associating is pretty big too. So even on the promotional videos, on the PR videos, when you look in the end, it's clear what Kiwi does. It's clear that Kiwi is going to be there. But you will never see someone from Kiwi. You will never see a Colombian person. You will see the local community acting. The person that is interviewed from KiwiBot is a student that turned into a member of KiwiBot as a company. And I believe that this kind of double layer is very nice, because if the service will open in Oklahoma, it's going to be people from Oklahoma. If it opens in New York City, it's going to be New Yorkers doing that. I think that what we created is kind of the seed. But we, in all due respect to the country we're at, we definitely want to improve, and we want to create jobs. When I got my visa, they told me that you have to create jobs. And that's been very clear in my mind that my objective here is to build a bigger US economy. So very proud for that model. Yeah.
Wow, that's a very interesting approach of how to develop a business, building from the community, and somehow the community doing the heavy lifting of introducing themselves, the product, into their own culture, I guess. So, wow, thank you for sharing. Okay. Sorry, I just got confused with my documents. Going back to you, Jennifer, I wanted to get a little bit deeper on a specific thing that you mentioned in the previous answer, and what was or how was your creative process while you were standing watching all the somehow mayhem that COVID had created, and thinking of how your company could support maybe economic recovery, or maybe like help overcome the health crisis that was being created. What was that spark of innovation, creativity, and will to pivot and dig in to lead your engineer team to find solutions?
Well, I think for us it was a necessity. I mean, since we weren't able to get on planes and shake hands and sign new contracts and install equipment and meet with construction teams who are building new facilities, we had no choice. So it took a bit of time to get everything sort of realigned, but like I said, it was a matter of days when we were able to develop a whole new system for how we install our technology. So I think it wasn't really by choice necessarily, but in the end, it actually turned out to make a lot of sense for the business, and that particular opportunity is something that we'll continue to do from now on, because it makes more sense.
Agree. I think that identifying necessities is also a key part of leadership, and when you are able to lead the team towards finding a solution that's also innovative and groundbreaking, it's a great way to help and support your community. Good. So now we're receiving questions from the audience. Here is one that I find very interesting, and it's open to everybody. So what advice would you have for someone who wants to become an entrepreneur or launch a creative idea? If anybody would want to take the lead, maybe Diego would be great.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer this question from my own experience. Doesn't mean it needs to apply to everybody, but I don't think becoming an entrepreneur is something that you plan. It's not like you should wake one day and say, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to start. It's something that works the other way around. You have an idea, and then you start chasing it, and you chase it till either you make it happen or you get another idea that's better. So my advice would be, if you have an idea, just chase it until it makes no sense anymore.
That's a great advice, and thank you for sharing. How about you, Jennifer?
I think talking to potential customers early on to get that feedback as you're in the development process is critical. That's something that we did from the very early days, and what we sort of offer today looks dramatically different than what it looked like, 5-10 years ago. So I think if we'd done all of that development work in isolation without getting that feedback and then being able to make tweaks as we move forward, I think we probably wouldn't be where we are today. And when you're picking those partners, be selective, because not everybody makes good partners when you just have an idea. Some customers want things to be perfect, and you're going to have to wait to engage with someone like that. But if you can find mission aligned customers who understand that there's going to be iterations of technology, then they're going to be much better partners in the long run.
I do agree that finding the right partner is key for starting businesses or any other initiative that you want to pursue. And what you say is that the project could be a living project and change over the time. So I think it's very valuable also. Thank you. David, what advice can you give our audience about how to become an entrepreneur or launch a creative idea?
I think, okay, two things. So one is simple, one is actionable. The simple one is just start. I think that nothing starts till you start. And starting is hard. Being the small potato is hard. Knowing that you will be the small potato for years maybe is even harder. So if you're willing to be small, you can do it, but definitely is breaking the mental barrier that keeps you from starting. I think that's it. And the second, that is actually actionable, and I think this could help many people, it will have helped me a lot, is that you create a product, even an MVP. And this is what you do. You go to companies and to prospects, and you make them sign a letter of intent, an LOI. You tell them, you can try this service. You give me a setup fee, so you get some money, any type of money. You try the service for 1 month. If you like it, the setup fee goes to the second month. If you don't like it, I return the money in full. You stack some money and you go to an angel investor and you tell them, I got a product, I got clients, and I got money in the bank, and they will give you money. That's a hack we learned from a general partner at one of the funds that funds KiwiBot. And if we had learned that 2 years ago, I think we'll be on the moon maybe. So
Great, thank you for sharing those hacking tips. Guys, I think we're towards the end of this amazing coffee chat. I just want to close our conversation with a question about how, or are there any positive learnings and adaptations that you have been changing towards the innovation landscape? We can see how Jennifer has found her telecommute installation process, and that's a silver lining from the pandemic. But if you can elaborate more on like which learnings and how can that provide the space to make changes in a more permanent way after we have overcome this surreal times, I think it'll be a valuable way to close this coffee chat. Diego, would you start, please?
Yeah, I think this panel is a really great example of that. There's people from Colombia, Mexico, and Canada talking through their computers about something we have in common, right? And this pandemic made us realize that that's possible. That maybe a couple of months back, this would have been a coffee chat that would have not been virtually. It would have been, I don't know, maybe based in Denver, from people, maybe from different parts of the world, or all based in Denver. And maybe it would have been transmitted digitally. But now we really realize that we can actually be more global. By being based and not being able to move, we're actually being more global. And I think that's something that's gonna play really well in the future.
Thank you, Diego. I do agree. What about Jennifer? Please feel free to expand on what you feel is coming and what the silver lining of these times has been.
Yeah, I think for us, just sort of a realization that everything is on the table. Things were kind of steady state for a number of years, and if you'd brought some of these ideas to whether it's an investor or a customer or whoever it is, they probably would have laughed and said, "Well, that's not how we do it." But things have changed pretty drastically in every aspect of our lives, whether it's how we work, where we work, who we're working with. We've got our kids at home, or really how we do every aspect of life and business. So I think now's the time to sort of test those crazy ideas and see what sticks.
That's true. It's a time for testing and adjusting for hopefully a better future. And I do believe that everybody has somehow pivoted, not only big businesses, but also at home, like families that used to have their children in the school all day so they could have time to do their own things at home or at work. Now they are dealing with a lot more stuff. So yeah, I totally agree. How about you, David? You're muted.
Yeah, I missed the question again.
Oh,
sorry.
no, we were just discussing which was the silver lining and the positive learnings of this whole situation with COVID, and which of the changes that you have introduced could be long-lasting.
Yes. Okay, I got you. No, I think COVID definitely changed our business model. I think that's a lot. But definitely, I think that the final element is that for us, it was a good understanding that sometimes companies seek to find customers that are just willing to try something that wants. Many times you have customers that need. So if you focus on the latter, you can actually create a longer lasting effect on the communities. You can have more steady revenue, in like a monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenues. If you stick to those that need your product, it's going to be better to stick with those that want your product. That was a big lesson, and I also think it was something very sensible that otherwise would have been hard to learn.
Yeah, I agree. It's true that sometimes we do need to find what we need and not necessarily what we want to move forward. So, well, thank you guys. This has been an incredible coffee chat. I'm turning back to Robin. She'll join us any second now to sort of close this session.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us here this morning on a Friday. It was really insightful to hear from all of you about your experiences. And I think Diego said it perfectly that, we are now more connected in a way through this virtual space, and we're able to bring together people to share learnings from different countries on these topics. So certainly from the Biennial's perspective, this coffee chat model is a way in which we have pivoted and found a lot of benefits in being able to connect people in this way. So we really appreciate your participation, and we hope you all have a great afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
It was
you.
great meeting